Merle Oberon's story is so crazy. It just kept getting crazier and crazier the more I peeled back the layers of the onions. But my heart goes out to her. While many people are very angry with her for, disowning where she was from, she whitewashed herself. There's just a horrific skin bleaching story we're about to talk about. I actually feel really bad for her. She went through so much trauma, and not just that, a lot of the decisions she made was because of the times, and we're just gonna get into that, but I want you guys to have an open mind for her. I mean, the person she thought was her sister turned out to be her mother. She just went through it. We're going to get into all of that and more. But first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, karinealourde, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars through history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so. And if you're already subscribed, please turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. Merle Oberon is a beauty icon, a fashion icon, and a trendsetter. So we are going to get into her beauty secrets and skincare, which we're going to talk about the skin bleaching situation. But again, once you hear her story, you will really understand why she went through such great lengths. And we're also going to talk about her diet and exercise and then get into her crazy childhood and even crazier career. Let's start with her makeup. In 1940, Oberon's skin became discolored as a result of both cosmetic poisoning and an allergic response to sulfa medications. Some now believe she was actually trying to bleach her skin and got burned and scarred really badly. And like I said, once you hear her story, you may actually grow to believe these rumors. She underwent multiple dermabrasion surgeries at a skin specialist office in New York City after Alexander Korda recommended her. Her face had developed noticeable pits and indents that couldn't be covered up by cosmetics, so the results were only partially successful. Because of her skincare condition, she learned a lot of makeup tips, tricks, and hacks to really get her face to hide this. And she also was one of the first stars, which we're going to talk about later in the video, that had a light invented specifically for her to attach to the camera to kind of soften her face and remove all of the scars and blemishes. There is no photos of what happened to her face, but we will talk about how people recounted her face to the point where they had to create a whole different camera lens, which is what a lot of, even the Kardashians and beauty influencers use when they do makeup, etc. It just blurs out your face. It was like one of the first ever filters. You have Merle to thank for that, because they really invented that to hide that for her. So she learned to put powder first on her face and then foundation second, and then powder again on top of that to kind of cover the indents that were in her face and to really hide the discoloration that bleaching caused. And she also learned to do more simple makeup, not too dramatic to draw too much attention to the different features. So she would wear red lipstick, but she made sure there was no dramatic eyeshadows or anything like that to not draw too much attention all across her face, to where everything just kind of blended in seamlessly to her neck and the rest of her body. Now, when it came to her diet and exercise, she told Lydia Lane that she loved grilled meats, salads, and vegetables, so it's no hardship for me to stay away from sweets and rich dishes. She also said, I like to walk and I'm mad about swimming. Merle said, adding that she keeps her pool heated year round. Her favorite food was grilled fish, and she also loved chocolate, and her favorite color was orange, so leave an orange heart for her in the comments. Now let's jump into her childhood. Merle Oberon was born on February 19th, 1911 in Bombay, British India, known today as Mumbai, India. Throughout her life, Merle kept her true heritage a secret, falsely claiming she was born in Tasmania, Australia, and that her birth records were destroyed in a fire. In reality, she was brought up as the daughter of Arthur Terence O'Brien Thompson, a Welsh mechanical engineer working for the Indian Railways, and his wife, Charlotte Selby, a Eurasian from Sri Lanka, who her mother was from Sri Lanka, so she was very dark-skinned. She was a dark-skinned woman. But according to her birth certificate, Merle's biological mother was actually Charlotte's 12-year-old daughter, Constance Selby, whom Merle thought was her sister. So basically, her grandmother raised her as her own daughter, which many of you guys may have it, like we experienced that a lot in Haiti. A lot of people did that. But the story behind it is rather sad. And there is no photos of her as a child or her upbringing or anything like that. Because she worked so hard to hide that part of her, she made sure the world would never get to see any photos of her past life, her childhood, or her parents. She even passed off her mother as being her maid in her house. Her mother was dark skinned, so Merle was able to pass as a white woman, and whenever her mother was with her, she would tell people her mother was her maid when she became successful. Okay, so Constance, who was actually Merle's real mother, and aka her fake sister, became pregnant as a result of being touched without her permission by her stepfather. So she got impregnated by her stepfather. And to avoid a scandal, her grandmother Charlotte, who pretended to be her mother, decided to raise Merle as if she was Constance's half-sister. This wasn't the first time that Charlotte, who is actually Merle's grandmother, had to do something like this. She herself had given birth to Constance at 14 due to being touched without her consent, also by Henry Alfred Selby, an Anglo-Irish foreman of a tea plantation. So by the time Merle's actual mother gave birth to her, Charlotte, her grandmother, was only 26 years old. So she was a very young grandmother, and it was easy for people to believe that Merle was actually her daughter. Constance, who is Merle's actual mother, later married Alexander Soares, and they had 4 more children: Edna, Douglas, Harry, and Stan. So that would make all 4 children Merle's half-siblings. But Merle didn't really want anything to do with them. Harry, who is one of Merle's half-brother, discovered Merle's birth certificate in an Indian government records in Bombay. He was shocked to find out that he was actually Merle's half-brother, not her nephew. He tried to visit her in Los Angeles, but she refused to see him. Harry initially kept this information from Oberon's biographer, Charles Hyham, and finally revealed it only to Marie Delofsky, who produced a documentary in 2002 titled The Trouble with Merle, which explored the various conflicting stories about Merle's origins. But Oberon loved her grandmother, who pretended to be her mother, and considered her grandmother as her actual mother even after she learned the truth. And in 1949, Oberon commissioned paintings of her grandmother Charlotte based on old photographs, but depicting Charlotte with lighter skin, because remember, her grandmother was dark-skinned, which was not popular during those days, so she had her painted in lighter skin. And these photos hung all in her homes until Oberon's own death in 1979. When Merle was just 3 years old in 1914, her father, Arthur Thompson, joined the British Army tragically, and he passed away of pneumonia while serving on the Western Front during the Battle of the Somme. After his death, Merle and her mother, Charlotte, aka grandmother, lived in poverty in rundown apartments in Bombay for a few years. They eventually moved to better living conditions in Calcutta in 1917. Merle attended La Martiniere for Girls, one of Calcutta's top private schools, thanks to a charity scholarship. However, she faced constant bullying due to her mixed ethnicity, which led her to leave school and continue her studies at home. And Merle also had a deep love for film and enjoyed spending her evenings at nightclubs. During this time, she worked as a telephone operator under the name Queenie Thompson. As Merle grew up, her beauty flourished. With thick, dark hair, high cheekbones, and a petite frame, Merle was already the embodiment of a Hollywood starlet. Her aesthetic was considered the beauty standard at the time in India, as unlike many other Anglo-Indians, her skin was significantly whiter, so that kind of complexion was very popular in India. Merle began hitting the nightclubs, often speaking in a fake British accent. It was at this time that Merle began to experiment with skin bleaching treatments in order to lighten her skin. That's why many people think the whole car accident story she told later was a lie, and the cause for her skin damage was actually bleaching, not a car accident. But her skin got so bad that she had to basically lie to people and say that it was a car accident. And these products that she used to bleach her skin was sold by British companies and widely available in India. These products catered to the idea that the whiter the skin, the prettier. Merle in particular, who believed that dark skin equated to a life of poverty, was quick to try out these products. The effectiveness of skin bleaching products, which are still readily available today, depends on how much melanin the body produces. To do this, the compound ammoniated mercury is utilized as the active ingredient, which can result in mercury poisoning and its symptoms, which can range from skin rashes to even impaired cognitive functions. And in 1929, while at Furpos, Merle met a former actor, Ben Finney, and they began dating. However, he one day met her mother, aka her grandmother, who was a darker skinned woman from Sri Lanka, as mentioned, and after learning about Merle's mixed heritage, Finney ended up breaking up with Merle because He did not want to be seen with a dark-skinned woman. Despite this, he offered to introduce her to Rex Ingram, a film director at Victorian Studios in France, if she was willing to make the journey. Merle and her mother packed their belongings and relocated to France. But when they arrived, they found that Finney was avoiding them. Like we mentioned, he didn't want to be caught with someone as dark as Merle's mother. Despite this setback, he had spoken highly of Merle to Ingram at the studio in Nice, and intrigued by Merle's unique look, Ingram quickly hired her for a small role as an extra in a film called The Three Passions, marking the start of her Hollywood career. But before her start, she did what she had to do to make ends meet, if you catch my drift. In 1929, Merle and her grandmother left India, traveling to the UK via France. Merle originally became a nightclub hostess in London, where she was rumored to also charge a few $100s now, which is equivalent to around $3,000 a night, for a night in her company. She was a high-end call girl while also working in films behind the scenes. Now, in terms of her career, as she confessed in a 1939 film Weekly interview, she couldn't dance, sing, write, or paint, but believed her face, while not extraordinary, had a photogenic quality that could be her ticket to success, according to her own words. But she was always gorgeous, right? Her big break came when film director Alexander Korda noticed her potential and cast her in a small but significant role as Anne Boleyn in 1933. Merle, who at the time was still going by her birth name Estelle, was convinced by Alexander to become Merle Oberon, a name he believed stripped her of any traces of her origins and gave her a new distinguished image. The film was a major hit, leading to more prominent roles for Merle, including The Battle alongside Charles Boyer and The Broken Melody. Merle continued to work with Korda on two more films, The Private Life of Don Juan and The Scarlet Pimpernel. Baldwin then cast her in The Dark Angel, which earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. This was followed by roles in These Three and The Beloved Enemy. She went on to star in countless other films all across Europe and America. Oberon concealed the fact that she was born in India, perhaps as a result of the pervasive prejudice in Hollywood at the time, but it actually means that she had two major advantages. She was not only the first person of Asian origin to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress, but also the first person of Asian heritage overall till this day. When in 1935, the Los Angeles Times printed that Merle was Eurasian, Merle was quick to dispute these claims, stating that the shape of her eyes and the fact that she had lived in India were merely coincidences. So till the very end, she really wanted nothing to do with where she came from. Now, in terms of her marriages, in 1939, Merle Oberon married film director Alexander Korda. However, their marriage ended in divorce in 1945, and Oberon married cinematographer Lucien Ballard the same year. Ballard invented a special camera light known as the Obi to help hide her facial scars. Marriage ended in divorce in 1949, and Oberon then married Bruno Paglia, an Italian industrialist, in 1957. Together, they adopted two children and lived in Mexico. Oberon met Robert Wolders, a Dutch actor who was 36 years old at the time. She divorced Paglia and married Wolders, who was 25 years younger than her, in 1975. And stayed with him until her death in 1979. She died of a stroke at the young age of 68 years old. I really have sympathy for her. Before you guys like, oh, she wasn't proud of herself. You guys didn't live through that era. It is so funny to me and hilarious even to me when I see people in this generation have so much opinion on why people of the past behaved how they did in terms of denying where they came from or passing, or maybe taking on some coonery roles, roles that didn't put their people, their communities in the best light. Why people was able to trash them and have so much to say when you don't know how you would have been in that era, and you don't know how difficult it might have been for her. She had a lot of stress around her heritage and her percentage and like where she came from, that she suffered a lot of heart palpitations, heart fluttering, etc., which is no wonder that she died from a stroke, because she always said she was born in Australia, right, in Tasmania. It's a crazy story. They invited her to Australia actually, right, and they were gonna do this whole ceremony for her for being from Tasmania, and then the governor ended up finding out that she wasn't actually from Australia. And while she was there, she ended up confessing that, yeah, I'm not really from here. I just came here once when my dad was sick, which that was also a lie. So she got really sick from her secret being found out, that she wasn't born from Australia, although she still didn't say where she was from. Even in movies, the press kept hounding her because they'd be like, you look Asian sometimes, which she did. I thought she was Asian without knowing anything about her. When I first saw pictures of her, I was like, she's an Asian woman, right? Sometimes in movies, her accent would come out and she'd have like more of an ethnic accent, if that makes sense, like an Indian like accent, that they would call that out also, like, why does her accent sound like this? And they just would not leave her alone. And it put her in a constant state of anxiety. She had to keep lying and saying that her birth certificate was lost and missing and she couldn't find it. It was just the stress on her. And then to imagine how much her grandmother did for her. Her grandmother moved away, helped her pursue her career, and this woman had to live as your maid in your house. She wasn't her actual maid, but she had to tell people that. And the constant bleaching of the skin making her sick. She had to get a lot of cosmetic surgery in her older age to kind of fix her face and make it more proportionate. And she took a lot of sulfur capsules. The sulfur capsules is what created the dents in her face, and she had an allergic reaction to them. And sulfur was known to lighten skin. They still do sulfur injections in some clinic, in some IV drip clinics. Like, you'll see that there today, and people take them when over time it can really cause a lot of damage to you. But I really understand her. A lot of stars had to do this, from like the Rita Hayworths and even Marilyn Monroe, who was already a white woman, bleached her skin a lot. But if you guys haven't seen my Marilyn Monroe video, there was even rumors that she was Mexican. Like, her mother was born in Mexico. That's what's crazy, that Marilyn Monroe, you know, bleached her hair, bleached her skin. She bleached her skin so much that she started having white hairs that was growing out of her face. She had like a white fuzz on her face and on her skin, her arms. So it was even rumored that Marilyn Monroe is actually Mexican, and there's some evidence to suggest that she was, but she passed as a white woman. And the whole story of her mom having schizophrenia and all that was actually a lie. She just didn't want people digging into her private life to find out her true heritage. And it's just so sad, the great lengths that these women had to go through to lie about who they are, and just how dark the era was, and how unaccepting and uncultured and how ignorant everyone just seemed to be. And these men, the men that dated her, but soon as they saw her mother was a black woman, they just like dumped her. That was just crazy to me. And I can't wait for these ignorant times to be gone for good and be a thing of the past. But even today, people still bleach their skin, lighten their hair, and still get surgeries to have that Eurocentric look. And you know, and it's put in these communities where there can't be any diversity. And wow, I just wish things were different, because she was very talented. She had a variety in her film work. She was a very talented actress. Although she said she couldn't dance, act, or anything, she was a very good and prolific actress. But I feel like this whole scandal now overshadows all of the work that she's done. And all you will see people talk about is how she basically lied about where she is from. But she is Indian, okay? Though she was in European cinema. I just wish she would have lived long enough to see the industry change and be a little bit more accepting. Not saying that it's perfect, but she definitely wouldn't have had to go through such great lengths. And now more and more we see that this ethnic, eccentric look is more popular today. A lot of people want to look ambiguous and mixed. Mixed is even more popular than being white these days. So she probably would have thrived in this culture. But unfortunately, this was the era that she was born in. Comment below your thoughts. What do you guys think, okay? And don't forget to leave a orange heart in the comments for her. If you like the music you're listening to, the link is in the description. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.